I wanted to walk through Landscape of Mothers as a wheel as a way to illustrate how you Landscape of Mothers can be useful in a process, in sort of determining how you might want to work through a process. So I want to use sleep training as an example because I think it fits really well. And obviously this would be a little bit of a longer process. I just want to run you through it as an example. So Landscape of Mothers as a wheel always starts with Sun and Moon Mother. And it's always the consideration about, can this thing use some kind of regulation? Can it use some kind of system or rhythm or something to it? And that's why I think this is sleeping is one of those regulatory things. Like we have to teach a lot of the skills of self-regulation in order to get our children to fall asleep on their own, right? And this isn't something that's inherent or to children for some reason that I don't fully understand. It really does seem to be something that we need to teach. So the answer to this is yes. And so our overarching kind of idea is we're trying to create some kind of cycle or rhythm. In order to do that, we move to Wind Mother, which wants to create some space in this, right? It means we have to let some things go. So we have to kind of release some of our grip on it. Often sleep, because it has everyone so tired all at the same time, tends to be one of the more difficult things to set up, right? So everybody gets tired and then everybody wants to like yell or throw tantrums or whatever, and it deteriorates quickly, usually because everyone is exhausted. So Wind Mother is sort of like, we need to kind of create a little bit of room in there. There needs to be room for experimentation. There needs to be room for figuring things out. To do that, we move to Desert Mother, who wants to figure out what pieces of what we're already doing work, because it's always best to start with what works, get rid of the rest, and then build on what already works. And by works, I mean referencing that Sun and Moon Mother thing, right? Like what works in the sense that it is teaching our children self-soothing techniques, self-regulation. So what already is happening that works in that direction? And then we want to let go of all the things that don't. And the things that don't are often hard to get rid of because they're things that, like, they're our urgency, right? They're the way we're responding to the fact that we are also exhausted and we're just trying to get the kids to go to sleep. So Desert Mother is a discernment process. What works, what doesn't work, what is actually feeding our ultimate desire, which is teaching the kids how to regulate. Then we move on to Island Mother, and we're looking for new things. What can we add to what we already have that would create more of a ritual or a rhythm? And often those things are just little techniques that you can pull from all over the place. So in terms of sleeping, some things that I know about physiology that might help would be taking a warm bath or shower before bed is often a good way for people who have difficulty sleeping, no matter your age, to go to sleep, because when we can warm up in the tub or the shower, that waning of our body temperature as we go into sleep is part of what like brings us to sleep, right? It supports that going to sleep process. So a hot bath, a warm bath for the kids you might want to add that if it's something that you don't already have in your rhythm. A dark room is easier to fall asleep in than a light one. The more quiet it is, the better. That is the more consistent. So like some kids do really well with some white noise in the background. You can get little white noise machines. Better not to have something that's stimulating to the brain. The white noise kind of lets the brain settle, while having input of like a movie or a conversation or a whatever can be stimulating. That said, Singing to our children is also a good way to get them to sleep. The sound in our voice is soothing to us. It's also soothing to them. Sometimes kids want contact because it makes them feel safe, so you can hold their hand while they fall asleep. And that's us giving a little bit of input, but it's us offering a regulated, like, calm nervous system or a calm place for them to tap into. And this is how they learn how to calm themselves, is that they have an adult that can teach, that can present the calmness, right? So from island mother of like, what do we need to add? We're kind of looking into that mountain mother, like what is stabilizing, what brings that calm nervous system to our children. When we're using voice, that is, we're singing or we're telling a story, the more that our voice can be calming and reassuring, and the story doesn't have any intense content in it. And like, it was boring as all get out when I was a kid, but my dad used to, maybe that was the purpose, but my dad used to count until I fell asleep. He would count by ones to 100 and then count by twos. And by the time he got to counting by threes, I was almost certainly asleep. Boring, but the tone of his voice was even and gentle. And I think that was the thing that was soothing. I was able to fall asleep. It was also boring, right? Nothing was happening in the story. Nothing intense was happening. It was literally just recounting numbers. So stuff like that. So what are those mountain mother kind of presentations that we can make? Our voice would be soft and gentle without a ton of stimulation or like intensity to it. We might have the bath, we might have whatever. So we're looking for those things. What are things that our children respond to, right? You can create the most beautiful and inspiring nighttime ritual, and if your kid doesn't respond to it, that's not going to work. Caveat to that is sometimes this stuff takes a little bit of time for them to learn how to hook into it and settle, especially if you're trying to move this from if you're trying to change the rhythm and the pattern of sleep time a lot, then it may take some time for them to settle in a little bit. Moving from mountain to river, that is organizing those individual things that you feel are regulating to your child, and the things that are very pointedly and specifically training them to find their own calm spot internally so that they can go to sleep. And so that's a rhythm, right? Like it might be in my house when my kids were really little, we had like a little chart because they couldn't read yet, and it said get a glass of milk or something. You could have milk or water, then you go brush your teeth, and then we read a book, and then we turned out lights and went to sleep, kind of thing. So we had this pretty clear thing because we were having trouble with our kids waking up or telling us as soon as we put them in bed, I'm hungry. And then we felt like we couldn't put them to bed hungry. So, we would be getting up and eating, and then it was all this re-stimulation and a lighted kitchen and all that. So that was our way of dealing with that particular issue that we ran into. So use creativity, figure out what you need to do, figure out how those things go in order. You wouldn't brush your teeth before you drink milk or eat before bed, right before bed. So just order those as works for you guys. And then it's forest. It's a reminder that this is again a good example, right? Sleep is something that we're trained to do. We can either run ourselves all the way to the end of our capacity and fall down exhausted, which the parents are probably doing every day. But when we're wanting our kids to learn how to regulate themselves and how to, this will translate into their ability to regulate their emotions in the future. So these are their first attempts at trying to learn how to work with their own nervous system to produce a desired effect. And the desired effect in this case is to get enough sleep that you can wake up in the morning and do what needs to be done. Training them to do this so that they can go to school is really the purpose often of this. So They learn from others, hence the forest, right? We learn to regulate ourselves by co-regulating with someone else. We can do that to dysregulate, right? So when somebody walks into a room and starts just dishing out whatever and starts yelling at people, we tend to respond in kind, right? And so we want to find these ways for our children to regulate, that they can calm themselves down, because it's so easy to rile yourself up. So it's easy to dysregulate with someone else. It's harder to regulate with. And so it's a skill that needs to be learned and practiced. So that's our forest mother, connecting to each other, connecting to the larger context of why we're doing this. And then on to ocean mother, which is that sense of this is part of our human experience, to learn how to rest, to learn how to take a pause, to learn how to regulate ourselves. And that there's a really important integration experience that we have when we're asleep. So not conscious, but our brain tends to work at things. So we know about how brains work, that if you're trying to memorize something, like you're trying to memorize your vocabulary words for school tomorrow, it's really good to review them before you go to bed. Your brain will continue to organize and integrate those until tomorrow when your test is, right? So like when we're studying or something, we know that it's beneficial to review the thing and then go to sleep, right? So so we know, and we also know this about our emotional world. It's just more complicated, right? But the same thing holds true, which is that we sleep in order to integrate. We take this rest in order to let things settle, to find their place, to find the connections. And so brain health sleep is incredibly important to brain health. So that is us using Landscape of Mothers as a wheel to look at a process that we're trying to create. I hope this has been helpful and informative. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to post below. Thanks.